Alrighty, welcome out to the Tableau user group. My name is Justin Hinckfoot. I've done a couple presentations in the past. We've got an exciting presentation on all things beta. I hope my voice lasts. I went to Coachella this past weekend and screamed a little bit, so I've got water up here, so bear with me. So, as I said, we are going to discuss all things beta. Tableau has a really nice beta program, so I'm going to give you a little introduction to that, what it entails, some of the prerequisites that are required in order to join the beta program, and also where Tableau gets a lot of their ideas from. After that, we're going to go through what's currently in beta for Tableau Desktop. There's a lot of really exciting features, some new line charts that we can use, auto-generated mobile layouts, a lot of exciting stuff going to be showed. And then finally, we're going to wrap it off with a little Project Maestro demo, give you a little introduction to the tool, some of its capabilities, and then show you what that looks like from the desktop version as well. So, what is beta? No, we're not talking about the mathematical term of beta. We don't really care about the probability of errors, although in beta user testing, you're probably going to encounter an error. So here we're discussing all things beta. So really what the beta cycle is Tableau, or any company for that matter, trying to figure out how their software is going to work in the real world outside of their perfect environment. They have all these really nice systems, everything's very consistent. They're trying to get the tool into some users' hands to uncover those bugs in the real world before they deploy that full production version. So where does beta fit in? Beta is a part of the ongoing development lifecycle. As you can see, it is a giant circle. So after we have our developers enter the code and build out the features, they undergo, typically, a round of user acceptance testing within the organization. So there would be a group of individuals at Tableau that are testing all these features. But again, that's within their pre-confined walls. It's a nice environment, very consistent architecture. So they release it into beta for people like us to get our hands on, download it, and start to play around with the features. Typically, in a beta scenario, they're going to have very predefined questions, very pinpointed, asking you very specific questions and scenarios. We'll go through a couple of those later so you can kind of get a feel for what you would be signing up for. Also in beta, all of the features are going to have been incorporated. Everything's going to be done, ready to go for that full production release. They're just doing that stress testing, so final improvements. In certain scenarios, you might also find a alpha release kind of in between UAT and beta. That's going to be another opportunity for them to get experience and have users start to play with the features. Typically in an alpha version, you're going to have a lot of different potential scenarios. They're trying to see what works well, what users are interested in, and it helps them tell the story. So not everything in an alpha release is going to get its way into beta. So after beta, we then go into that full production release. That's what we're using in our production scenarios. That's what the majority of customers around the world are using. After that production release, we go back into development and begin the process all over. So it really is a giant life cycle. So how does Tableau decide what to incorporate into their beta releases? They use various idea generation forms. One of the methods is questionnaires. Before the beta release, they have this early feedback program. They sent out a survey to people recently. They were looking for feedback on how you use published data sources. What do you do when you first try and identify a published data source to use? How do you determine if it's a safe data source? So they go through, ask you some open-ended questions, submit your responses, and then they can kind of get some ideas from there. Another method is through social media. So they're pretty big on Twitter. Tableau is very responsive. They're definitely monitoring social media, trying to understand where people have pain points and things that they can incorporate into their software. Lastly, and probably the most important, is the ideas forum. So there's a nice website down at the bottom left. You can see kind of the URL. But on the Tableau communities page, there is this idea forum. So you can submit ideas. Anybody that has something that they think would be cool to add, you can submit an idea. So if you've got screenshots, you would add a little description of what you want to see added. And then you can have a nice dialogue with other people in the Tableau community. People might back up your ideas. You have the ability to vote on ideas. And so you can track all that information. So on the ideas page, you've got a nice landing page. So this is the last year of all of the ideas that have been submitted. So you can see obviously increases in submissions towards the middle of March. But it's coloring all of these dots based on the number of votes. So something that has more votes is more likely to then be incorporated into the software because obviously a larger number of users is interested in that. So we can see there's one up here that was red, and it was for JSON published data sources. So you can come in here, could also see some of the top ideas over the last 7 days. So somebody wants there to be a default number of revisions on Tableau server versus keeping the entire profile of all of the changes that you overwrote to a workbook. So you can come in here, submit ideas, vote on others. It's definitely interesting. I definitely have used it myself. What's also cool about the forum is you can follow along with a topic. So this is one that I'm going to demo later. But there was a user that requested hierarchical filters. So then you can see at the beginning or the middle of July last year, Tableau marked it as in beta. About a week later, they changed that status to planned. So they let the people know, we've committed to this, we are working on it, we're incorporating it into our software. So you can definitely see that entire discussion ongoing on Tableau server. Now I jumped past a point that I wanted to make. Another way that Tableau gets these ideas, kind of from the forum and the questionnaire, but you have the ability to discuss things with the Tableau development team. I've been involved in several discussions with Tableau and their developers in a large group setting to kind of discuss how we use parameters. It was really cool to kind of see the different features that they had been working on and showcased from the Tableau conference in a one-on-one setting with about 10 of us individually. It then turned into another discussion where it was just one of me with about 15, 20 of their developers, which that was really cool, kind of talking through how I use Tableau, what my pain points are with parameters. But it's a very rare and I think a really unique opportunity to be involved in this. So, how can you gain access to the beta environment? We've got a URL up here for you, prerelease.tableau.com. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Anybody can access the beta environment as long as you use your corporate credentials. Not the email and password you use to log into your company's email, but the user credentials used to log into the customer portal on Tableau, not Tableau server, but the Tableau website. So as long as you have a login from your organization to access the Tableau website, you are more than welcome to sign up for the beta environment. Once you're in the beta environment, you're presented with individual opportunities. So depending on your role, will determine what opportunities you sign up for, but you have the ability to sign up for all of them. So you can register for individual opportunities. Today, these are all of the open ones. So you've got data connectivity. They've got some pre-built dashboards for Marketo, Salesforce, Eloqua. So depending on your use case, you can have like a pre-built dashboard. I'll show one later. Obviously, Project Maestro is another one. Tableau 2018.1 beta. This one is currently open, but it will be closing in the next week as they are moving 2018.1 out of beta, so it will be production soon. They also have Tableau early feedback. So again, this is before beta, kind of that alpha, trying to get some information on how you're using it. And then the extensions API for a developer preview. So allowing you to build nice widgets into your dashboard. Maybe if you work in a distribution center or a stockroom, you could see that this unit is getting really low on quantity. You could have a widget to order more of that item. So why should you join Tableau beta? Because you get access to some of the early features. It's nice to be able to see what's coming, provide that feedback if you're someone that likes to provide feedback. And it is nice just to have that pipeline with the development team. So obviously though, with beta there are risks. Beta software should never be used in a production scenario. You should only ever use this in a test environment if you want to test what's coming. Or even as Michael was saying, download it with your company credentials onto your personal machine and just play around with it for fun. So never should this be involved in production. There are bugs and they will not support it if you do push it into production. So now that we know kind of how to access it and what beta is, here's a couple of scenarios just so you can understand what you're getting yourself into if you were to sign up. So I'll just explain test scenario 2. So this is one for 2018.1 beta, testing the step lines. So the scenario itself is turn an existing line mark into jump lines and toggle between different line types. So pretty straightforward. It then even breaks it down with the steps. Open an existing workbook with a viz that contains line mark types. Switch the mark type to jump lines by clicking on path in the marks card. Pretty straightforward. After you complete this scenario, there will then be an accompanying questionnaire, which you can complete, and that's where you'll enter any bugs that you experienced and what your perception of it was. Did you think it was easy? Could it be better? So they're really interested in just the usability behind it. So now that we've discussed kind of beta, how to access it and what it is, let's kind of jump into the Tableau desktop side. So there's currently a lot in beta as well as early feedback. Some of the tealish ones are what's in beta. The yellow color is what's currently in the early feedback stage. So there's a lot of different items on here. You know, they've got some nice buttons to help with the functionality and usability of dashboards, dual axis improvements to both maps and just a regular dual axis. So a lot of content that we'll jump into a little bit more. So auto-generated mobile layouts. This one's in the early feedback stage. Sounds really interesting. It will be interesting to see how they execute on it. So what it's going to do is if you publish a dashboard to Tableau server, or Tableau public for example, it's going to identify the device you're using. If it identifies that you're using a phone, it's going to manipulate your dashboard into a fit width scenario, and then it's going to rearrange everything into a vertical container. So it's optimized for a phone, you're going to scroll more. But if you have a larger screen, such as a tablet, it's going to do that fit all. So it's going to look kind of how it appears on the desktop, just a little bit smaller for that tablet screen. They're bringing a very nice feature to Tableau Server and Tableau Online that was already in Tableau Desktop, downgrading workbooks to earlier versions. There are instances where somebody, a different coworker, is using 10.2 and I'm on 10.5. Say I published it up to the server. That 10.2 employee would be able to download the workbook that was a newer version than what they have, download it into the version of Tableau Desktop they're using, and then work with it in Tableau Desktop. So it would be nice if there's no governance in your organization for what version everybody uses, but obviously in some organizations everybody's using the same version. There's some improvements as well to dual axis maps. Now you have the ability to combine both custom and auto-generated coordinates. So if you have custom coordinates in your data source, and then you want Tableau to kind of do some more that you didn't have in there, now you can kind of marry them together. Regarding dual axes, now you have the ability to synchronize axes if they are not the same number format, meaning if you have a data set that has both the total population of a country, whole number, and you also have the GDP for that country as a full-on currency with the 100th of a decimal place, you can now synchronize those axes when previously they had to be the same number format. An exciting one that I know Anne is really jazzed about is hiding viz and tooltip sheets. This was really nice. Previously, you could hide worksheets around dashboards. It's really nice to have a clean workbook. But if anything was a viz and tooltip, you didn't have the ability to hide it. So you would have some straggling sheets. Now you have the ability to hide that one as well. And then lastly, SQL Server spatial data. If you have your custom coordinates in SQL Server, longitude, latitude, you can now rope those into Tableau and do your custom mapping based on those coordinates. Looking into some of those a little bit more, the dashboard buttons, this one I think is really cool. This one's in the early feedback stage. This one's allowing you to customize the UI. So if you have a dashboard with multiple tabs on it, you can now have an arrow left or right to go back or forward. If you have dashboards and the tabs are for specific functions like sales, marketing, you could remove those tabs at the top and have little icons. This is an example that I'll pull up a little bit later. But you could also expand visualizations. So one thing I like about Power BI is the ability to expand a visualization and view it full screen. For something like a scatter plot, if this were on a dashboard, it could be very small. You could add a little button on here to expand to view full screen. And it's then going to allow the user to click that. It's going to open the worksheet in its own window, and then you could always jump back into the dashboard view. So just allowing for some flexibility in the UI. This was another feature that's in early feedback. This was demonstrated at the Tableau conference this year, actually, or 2017. Kind of hard to see. That's probably one of my pieces of feedback on this one, is for people that like to do floating dashboards, it's kind of hard to align everything when we're really trying to get it pixel perfect. And so they've added the ability to add a grid to your dashboard so you can kind of see little lines. Really hard to see. I don't even know if I could like turn the lights off. But what they've decided to do is there's little squares in this picture here. It's the faintest blue, like even lighter than the blue up here. Terrible color selection, but it's really nice for those of you that have pixel perfect. You're just like really trying to get everything to look great. You have the ability to change the width of the pixels. You should be able to change the color of it too. This one's really cool, hierarchical filters. You'll see this update. What they've done is if you use a hierarchy, you now have the ability to limit your options based on the hierarchy. Currently, you have the ability to use both context filters or only relevant values, but it's known that there's a performance hit when you use only relevant values. Tableau is then re-querying the database to figure out, okay, I selected furniture, what is relevant to furniture? So I don't know how they built it, but what they did was, if you have a hierarchy established, you can set the filters to be only in hierarchy, and it's then going to limit the number of options for our subcategory based on what we've selected in the category field. Really cool, I think. Jump and step lines. This is like, we were talking about it earlier actually, this is like the first new visualization that Tableau has come out with, and we don't even remember how long. Not even a new visualization, really coming off of, okay, a lot of people are building this chart, let's make it easier to do it as a default. You had the ability to do step and jump lines, as you'll see in a second, but you had to know the correct logic. Now it's as simple as clicking a button and it's changing the way our line visualizes. This is really helpful when you have data that's changing at irregular intervals. Now you can see how long a value stayed at a certain point, as well as the magnitude and the change between month over month. So it's really nice if your data is kind of irregular. Pre-built dashboards. So this was an example from Marketo. Marketo is a marketing tool. So this is a pre-built dashboard that shows you email marketing campaign performance. So if we use Marketo, you would have several options for dashboards. You would find one that fits what you're trying to analyze, connect your data to it, and it's going to look exactly like this. So you would be able to see kind of like click-through rate, delivery rate of emails, like emails that got bounced back. So for somebody in an organization that might not have analysts, they're just trying to explore their data for fun, this will be a great option for them. Also a nice way to learn how to build good dashboards. A lot of really good principles in here in formatting. What's also cool about this is that it's not just desktop dashboards, they've also built in mobile layouts. There we go. So we can see that same story then presented for a phone. So that nice fit width or vertical container, so it'd be a lot of scrolling, but just kind of helping them out so it's less work for themselves. So that's pretty much everything from Tableau Desktop. Let's check out a little bit of, check out a little bit of that over in the desktop environment. So I just used the basic, oh no, it didn't show.
Just draw the PowerPoint and
okay,
and go to duplicate.
Yeah. All right. Resolution on that is a little small. So here we can see a little bit.
Year 2018, right?
Yeah. All right, we'll just kind of have to play with this. You can see a little bit, reading isn't super important. So over in our hierarchy, we can see we've got like the typical product hierarchy with the Superstore data set. In the hierarchy, we've got category, subcategory, and product in that order. So establishing your hierarchy is as simple as that. I will delete this, that way for those of you that haven't seen a hierarchy, might have seen it with Michael, just selecting both category, subcategory, or right click it, hierarchy, create hierarchy, go call it product. All right, so we've got that hierarchy that I just built. We've got category and subcategory as well. So then enabling the hierarchical filters is as simple as going down to subcategory, going through our more options menu, and then these are the options that we're used to. The first one is only relevant values. The one below it is all values in database. The one in between is all values in hierarchy. So enabling that feature is really what powers the hierarchical filters. So we can see that if I were to now change this to furniture, all of our subcategories are that furniture, office supplies, and so on. So really easy to turn on that type of filter. The other example is our step-in lines. So I said that it was really simple for you to turn that on. Let's say that we wanted to change our on-time shipment trends, look at it as a step line. All we're going to do is open up that visualization. We're going to go down to the path shelf, or the path card actually. We'll click that, and then we can see that we've got 3 different line types. So we've got the traditional line chart, the second one is our step line, and then finally is our jump. So all you have to do, click one of those, click another one, and that's as simple as creating your step and line charts. So much easier to do now versus creating like the different, I don't even know the logic, I don't even think I ever built the logic. Really easy to get to now. Maybe our grid will show a little bit better here. So this is the early feedback version of Tableau, different features in this version. As the grid that I was mentioning earlier, you'll go through the dashboard menu, and then down at kind of the third option there is show grid. So if you click that, you can kind of see, I'll like toggle it back and forth. You can kind of see like the little squares that appear. So this is really going to help you align it. You can click G, and it's going to toggle it back and forth. It's easier to see on the desktop screen, not so much up there.
So it's still visual, it's not a snap to grid.
Right.
Is the pixel nudge in there either?
I haven't found it. They didn't even document that the grid was in here. I was just like playing around and going through the options, and I found the grid. So they don't even broadcast this. So I don't think that they have the nudge. So we've got our buttons as well. So our typical dashboard menu, this is what we're used to. We've got horizontal, vertical, text, the blank, web page, all of those typical objects. One of them that they've added is button. So you can click and drag in a button, and it's just this like default little image. You can come in here, edit the button, and you can select what to navigate to. So you could select individual worksheets. We could select dashboards and just build out that navigation. You can then choose an image. So you could do a left arrow, a right arrow. You could do a happy face, whatever you really wanted. Total freeform. Then you would just apply it. So let's put this into presentation mode. So here is the little expand to view full screen button. Placement's very off, obviously. But you can see as I hover over it, it then has like click and expand. So we could select this, and it's now opened us into the full screen view for that worksheet. So now you've got a much more real estate to understand the scatter plot if you wanted to, but just allowing some more flexibility for navigating dashboards and bouncing around, allowing you to control the UI a little bit better. And yeah, so that's everything for Tableau Desktop. So let's jump on over to Maestro. Alrighty, what is Project Maestro? Project Maestro is a smart, simplistic, visual data prep tool. It gives you your basic components to get your data into a format that's going to be usable in Tableau, so that way you can really extract all the information out of it that's related to your dashboard and your use cases. So why should you care about Maestro? Tableau identified that analysts typically spend about 80% of their time prepping their data, with only about 20% of their time analyzing it. It's a large chunk of time just getting your data into a format that you can then paint pretty pictures with and uncover some insights. So Maestro is incredibly useful. You're definitely going to want to pay attention to it. I know a lot of you are probably like, okay, it's a data prep tool. We've got Alteryx out there. Why Maestro? What's the difference between the two? It's as simple as this. Everybody remembers that like basic Crayola crayon set, like Roy G. Biv, that's all you really need. And then there was always those like 124 packs. I didn't even know there was 152 pack of crayons. This is really the difference in the simplest terms that I thought people could really register with. Alteryx gives you a ton of different whiz-bang features. You can validate addresses against, like the United States Postal Service. You can do all of these different things with your data that, quite frankly, to me, it's a very complex UI, and just finding the different operation that I'm trying to do, it takes me like 5 minutes just to even find the different fields, or I don't even know the terms for them. So Maestro is basic. It's great. It gives you everything you need. Aggregating, joining, really like nothing super crazy. So for that 80-20, Maestro is going to be a great tool. It's really going to help out that business analyst really get the data into the format that they need. So compared to Tableau Desktop, Maestro is much more limited in the number of data sources. They are expanding it out, but what they've done so far is a good job at ensuring the most broadly used data sources are there. So we can see kind of those big players. We've got like SQL Server, Oracle, SAP, pretty much a lot of those big name ones. The typical text files, TDEs, so everything that you would really need. Obviously more coming. So what are some of the benefits of Project Maestro? Project Maestro is great for 3 main things. We've got a lot of data profiling, so some visibility into your data, how it's looking. The data preparation side, to being able to clean it up and get it into a format that's then usable. And then the seamless integration, so being able to use Maestro with the other products in the Tableau suite. So Tableau Online, Server, and Desktop. So, data preparation. I'm going to jump into that topic a little bit more and discuss what Project Maestro allows you to prep. These are kind of like the big 6. So you can do some aggregations, cleansing, filtering, grouping and replacing, joining data sources, and then splitting columns around. So the aggregations in Maestro are very similar to what you're used to in Tableau Desktop. The calculation language is going to be the same, which is great, because something like Alteryx, you're going to have to learn a new language a little bit. It's going to throw you off just to understand how the calculations are written and the syntax. So the ramp up of that is going to be much lower in Maestro. So it allows you to roll up your data sources based on what you need. So if you're trying to create an executive dashboard and it's got a lot of employee detail information, do you need all the employees' names in there and that granular information? So you can choose how to aggregate the data, what dimensions, and what measures. Next, we've got cleansing. So this is really nice to be able to change the characters around. If you've got currency that has the number and the currency value in one field, you could split that out, remove the letters, remove the numbers, remove punctuation. You've got a lot of nice little things that you can do to the data, make it uppercase, make it lowercase, but just kind of clean it up a little bit. The filtering in Maestro is also the exact same as it is in Tableau Desktop. You can filter dimensions in the same way. You can filter measures by a range of values. So nothing there is any different. Grouping and replacing is really nice if you have people that enter data by hand. Not everybody is under the same guidelines. So if someone fat-fingered a value, you could then group those items together. If someone has Arizona as AZ, someone has it all spelled out, you could then group those together into a common field as well. You also have the ability to group things by pronunciation and common characters. I'm a little hesitant on that one because I'm not too sure the logic behind it and how Tableau is grouping items, so I'd be a little weary of doing that. Joining is also the same in Maestro as it is in Tableau Desktop. The only improvement with joining is that it's very visual. I'll show that a little bit later, but it's really nice, very color-coded. You can easily see what's included and what has been excluded based on your join criteria. And then finally, splits. This is also similar to Tableau Desktop. You could split a column based on a identifier. Maybe you want to split it by a hyphen, split it after a certain number of characters. So you have the ability to manually define that, or you could have Tableau try and identify the split for you. So that's a lot of the preparation options. The seamless integration piece was also really nice. as this allows you to publish directly from Maestro up into Tableau server or Tableau online. You could also export your workflow as a TDE file. You can also export it just as a CSV. So we were actually talking about an interesting use case earlier of just using Tableau to create a data set and then publishing that data set and sending that off to your coworkers. That exact workflow could be done in Maestro, a much better tool for the job as well.
So with the output too, it will do hyper.
Yes.
But you can't do both. You can't do hyper and TDE in the same flow. So you gotta pick one.
One or the other.
Hyper.
All right, so that's a nice little introduction to Maestro. Let's jump into now the desktop side of things and kind of give you a little introduction to what it looks like. I just chose the wrong one. All right, so here we are. We have Project Maestro. As we can see, it's a little bit more visual than Alteryx if you're familiar with the tool. It's also more colorful. We've got various colors all along the way that do logically correlate to one another, at least I believe they do. So you can see kind of like the south orders, the file itself was green, and then the step after it was green as well. So all of these are different files on the left. So what we would do is come into our connections pane, and then you could choose the type of file, or you could select the server that we want to connect to. So I could come in here, just like select a text file, click like central orders. There we are. So now it's added my file. After that, you can see we've got this nice little plus sign that's appeared. And so clicking that allows you to then create those next steps. So we could add a cleansing step, an aggregation, we could pivot the data, join it to something, union it, or output it. So that's where you're really going to start to get into the manipulation side. But I'm going to use some of these built-in scenarios. So here's an example of, where's my cursor? There we are. One thing that we could cleanse. So when you first open up a file, so we have now loaded our south orders. So this would be our first pane that we look at. This is that data profiling component of Project Maestro. It's giving you a nice overview of all of the columns in your data set and kind of the distribution. So we can see, we've got our row ID. Obviously, that's not going to be super important for like an aggregation or trying to identify large values. But we could look at something like category. So if we scrolled over a little bit, we can see here that office supply is a much more common category than furniture and technology. So hovering over the office supplies field, we get a tooltip very similar to Tableau Desktop. So you can see that there were 995 rows that had an office supplies category. You could get the same information if we were to hover over technology, 293 rows. So getting a nice little distribution of your data. Well, actually, we have a lot of null values for our order ID. I think that's really going to screw up my analysis. I don't want those null IDs in here. So excluding that is as simple as selecting null. So what we see now is we have highlighted the null order ID, and it's given us this little blue bar. If you look at like furniture and office supplies, we've got a small portion of office supplies that's blue, a large chunk that's gray. What that's meaning is that for those null orders, that percentage of office supplies, whatever this blue portion here, that many records was related to a null order ID. So it's kind of showing you the impact on your data. So if we were to exclude our null order IDs, we're going to lose this chunk from each of our various columns of data. So we're going to lose pretty much all of whatever product this is because there was a null order ID. So it's giving you an indicator of the impact of your selections and what the data has. So if we exclude this, there we are. So now we can see that that's gone from our order ID column. It's no longer there. All of our distributions have updated accordingly. But Tableau has this, as they call it, a little recipe pane. And so what this is doing is it's keeping a nice log of all of those changes that we've made. So we just excluded that null order ID. We can see that it appeared as a filter in under changed. So we have one change. It was a filter on order ID, and the last line says exclude null. So you would always have the ability to see that history of changes. If you wanted to delete that change, if we wanted to have those nulls, you could simply select the X, and then those nulls have appeared back again. I'm going to re-exclude this. Another nice thing, if you're new to Tableau and just trying to understand the basics of calculated fields and the logic behind it, you could select the filter, right-click it. You can click Edit, and it's going to pull up that calculation window that we're used to from Tableau Desktop. You can see the logic that it created. So not is null order ID. So identifying null order IDs, and we're filtering where it's not null. So just helping you understand the logic. Another thing that we have the ability to do is change data types. So if we were to look at this file that we got from, I think this is our East region, we could see that the sales field has both USD for the currency as well as the numerical value for the amount of that sale. So it's more information than we want. We actually really couldn't do much on it. We just want the numerical field. So we could click on that column header, and we've got the little menu option that appears. So we can see all of those data prep options that I mentioned earlier. So we've got filter, group and replace, clean. So if we go through clean, we could easily remove the letters. And that's going to leave us with just the numerical representation of the sales. So it easily got rid of the currency. Now it's just showing me 85 cents. But it's a text field. This isn't a string, this is a number. So, bless you. This is very similar to Tableau Desktop, all of the data type options. So, same way you would change the data type in Desktop, you would change it in Maestro. So we would select the ABCs, change number, and we're going to go to decimal. And so now you can see that it's changed the field to a numerical value, and it's changed how our distribution is looking as well. So we can see that it's bucketed into ranges. So in a 0 to 1,000 range, there's 2,009 distinct values, but there are about 2,600 rows. So kind of giving you a little idea of how much data is in there. So there's a lot of other items that we could do. So one last example that I'll give is cleaning up states, and then we will execute this. So as I said, somebody might have states entered incorrectly. So here we can see that we have both the complete spelling of Arizona as well as the abbreviation, same with California. So we would go through our menu option again, click group and replace, and we're going to go manual selection. So here you would have the ability to select Arizona and then select AZ as well. So we can then come in here, right click those two selections, we'll edit the value to AZ, click enter. And now we can see that it has grouped those values together. There's a little paperclip icon to the left of it to show that they're in a group. If you select AZ, you could then see which items had the checkbox next to it and were included in that. So you could obviously add more if you wanted to. Obviously, CO is not in the United States, or Arizona, excuse me, but you could add however many options that you wanted. So in respect of time, I'll open this one real fast. So this is our join. So this is kind of that visual layout. So we can see over on the left is our join clauses. So we've done a right join on our all orders, and we've set that we want the product ID to equal each other as well as the order ID. So that's where we're matching up our join criteria. Down at the bottom, you can see a summary of join results. So this is giving you an idea as to what's included and what was excluded based on each data source. So the colors all align. So this magenta on the left is our clean notes data source, and the yellow is all orders. So you can see all orders, clean notes, all orders. So down in the summary, we can see that for the clean notes data source, 268 were included in our join, but there were 8 records that did not meet that criteria. For all orders, we can see that everything that was in our all orders data set was pulled into our join based on our right join. So if we wanted to then see what was excluded, you could select those 7 and it's going to present you with that data profile view up at the top. But if you wanted to look at the individual records, you could view those down at the bottom as well. So those are a nice little intro into Maestro. After you have everything set up, so we can see here that they're aggregating based on sales. Actually, that would be a good one to show you. So still continuing with the visual flow. Aggregations are actually really interesting. So what we've done here is it's very drag and drop. So you would, if we wanted to add customer name to the aggregation, select customer name, and then we would pull it into grouped fields. So the option on the left, grouped fields, this is saying what we want in our aggregated data source. So this is for an executive roll-up of year of sale by region. So that's all that we've pulled in. So it's going to aggregate everything up to that level. Towards the right, you then choose what we want to aggregate. So you're selecting your measures. So we're aggregating the average discount, the total profit, total quantity by region, by year. So a very drag and drop UI, which is really nice. All of these aggregations, this is all the same to Tableau Desktop as well. You would just simply select like the column header, and then we could see, you've got your sums, counts, medians, all of that, and that's how you would set the aggregation type. So after you've got everything done, you would select an output. So we could add an output. You would then set the file type. So you could select your hyper, you could select your TDE or your CSV file, set the file name, clear this one out, and then simply press the run button. And it's going to execute that flow. It's going to give you an idea of how much time it took, and then it's going to save your file wherever you selected to save it. If you wanted to publish it, it would then publish it up to the server. So that is all things beta, desktop, and Maestro. I realize that we're 8 o'clock, so if you have to leave, more than welcome to. But I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions you all may have. So, thank you.
Thank you.